remember when you were growing up and you'd give yourself your nicknames? Maybe you're standing on the garage roof, I am Flying Man, or I am Superhero Boy, or maybe the girls are, I am Wonder Woman, or whatever it might be. And we have the cool nicknames, and we come up with them, and we're going to be doing the awesome things. I'm not sure Jellyfish Man is exactly up there with what you would choose for a superhero name. It has been something that's been a bit labelled around Ian McCormack, but there's so much more depth to that story. He was stung by a jellyfish. He was officially declared dead. We're going to hear that remarkable story, and then he came back to life. But the remarkable thing we're going to hear is what he experienced during that time. And a God who interceded into his life like nothing else. Prepared to be blown away by this story. It doesn't matter what the nicknames might be. There is something deep here that God has got for you, whether you are a believer in a God or you are not. There is something special here. Would you open yourself up to hear what it might be for you? As we get to this story with Ian McCormack, could I encourage you to like, rate, review, share it with friends? The idea of this is it's always a free podcast. We just want to get good stories out to help people head towards a better understanding in their world. That's what the podcast is all about. All right, let's get stuck into this conversation with Ian McCormack.
So I was just kind of surfing like a surfing safari around the world from 1980 to 82. I was 24 years old when I left New Zealand, went up to Australia, Sri Lanka, surfed all through Indonesia and stuff, down to South Africa, Jeffreys Bay, and basically just on a surfing safari. And after 2 years of travelling, I came to an island called Mauritius, and I was surfing with a local Creole fisherman, and these guys were very keen divers, and I loved my diving. And so they taught me how to night dive, so I did a bunch of night dives with them. And one night, just before I was coming back to New Zealand, I swam into a whole bunch of box jellyfish. And so my whole life got kind of changed about that point.
Yeah. And, I mean, you got stung by the jellyfish, and then they tried to bring you into shore. You got stung as you came in too, didn't you? I mean, it was just a terrible moment.
Yeah, well, the other divers had full wetsuits on, so they were fortunately protected by them, but I had a short-sleeve vest on because the water was so warm for me. I got hit by them, my arm went up like a balloon, and the fishermen just freaked out. They said, one of these will kill you, mate. And I'd been hit 5 times, and I said, what can I do? And they said, well, the best thing to do is urinate on your arm right now and try and get to the hospital as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got to shore, the poison was really quick, and I started slipping into a coma, and I basically died on the beach.
What was your, now you said you were pretty much slipping into a coma. Did you have any sort of conscious functioning at that stage? Were you sort of half awake? Were you able to walk around?
Yeah, well, half my body had kind of got paralysed, but the poison really brought me into like this real sleepiness. And I was just shutting my eyes, and I heard this voice, a clear audible voice, say, if you close your eyes, son, you'll never awake again. Well, I was freaking because there was no one there. The young kid had jumped back in the boat and gone back to try and get the other divers because he was afraid they'd been killed. Yeah. So I've been left on the beach, and I hear this voice say, if you close your eyes, you'll never awake again. So that was a shock.
Yeah.
I was a complete atheist. I mean, a complete heathen. So hearing this thing really shook me. Yeah. And I realised as a lifeguard, if I shut my eyes there, then I'd mostly die right there on the beach.
Yeah. So
I tried to stand up. And hobbled down the road, my left leg still supported my weight, and I found 3 Indian taxi drivers who said, look, can you take me to the hospital? And they said, well, how much money have you got? I said, well, I made $50, $100. They said, well, let's see it, and we'll take you. And I said, well, I don't have any on me. And they just walked away laughing. And I thought, oh, great, I'm not even going to get to the hospital, and didn't know what to do. And this voice again spoke to me, said, look, are you willing to beg for your life? And I thought, mate, it's basically the best thing you can do. I'm sure these Indians haven't seen a white man beg, so I begged for my life. Fortunately, one of them took me in his cab and started racing towards the hospital. Only trouble is he then said, look, what's your hotel room because I want to get the money from you. And I said, look, I don't stay in the hotel. I'm living with a fisherman in Tamarin Bay. We're surfing. And he said, look, you lie to me, man. I said, I'm not lying to you. I'm not a tourist. I'm a surfer. I live in Tamarin Bay. He said, look, I'm taking you to the hotel there. They can look after you. And I pleaded with him to keep going, and he stopped in front of the hotel. I said, look, you get out. By this stage, the poison paralysed both legs. I said, look, I can't walk, so he just pushed me out of his cab.
And just drove off?
Drove off into the night, and thought, oh, what a wonderful move that was, So here I am lying half dead on the ground, paralysed from the waist down, and fortunately the security guards in the hotel had seen the taxi, came out and found me nearly dead on the ground. And one of the fishermen was a good friend of mine, Danielle. He was one of the security guards that night. He saw my arm, knew what had happened because he was a diver, carried me in, and screaming for help. The Chinese saw my arm and thought I'd put heroin. I was a heroin addict, and they just wouldn't help me. And my body started going to the death rattles, and I went into this terrible convulsions and shaking. And I come out of this, I was freezing cold, and I said, blankets, man. And then I said, can you take me in your car? And the guy said, no, mate, we're going to wait. This is a Chinese guy. No, white man, we wait for the ambulance. And I said, great, I hit the guy. And about to hit him, but because I was, I was pretty furious.
Yeah, exactly.
And I hear this clear voice say, son, if you hit this guy, this Chinese guy, the poison's so close to your heart, it'll kill you.
Wow. And this was the same sort of voice that you've been hearing the whole time?
Oh, yeah, mate. I'm going, who's this voice? And I thought, man, if I hit him, I might as well die. So I thought, I'll control my anger, look away and get him later. Plan B. So I'm steering off to my right, and an ambulance comes flying to the car park. My friend, the Creole guy, Danielle, who'd carried me into the hotel, he'd run the hospital. They'd get me into the ambulance, race me towards the hospital, and I started seeing my life go before me. Oh, now here we go. I'm not even going to make it, Yeah. And I see my life racing before me, small kid, different sections of my life. And I thought, man, this happens before people, just before they die. And I said, if I died tonight, is there life after death? And I thought, well, I don't know, man. I don't believe in all that stuff. If you die, the worms get you. And so I'm lying here. Next minute, right in front of me, on her knees, in the bedroom with her hands up in prayer, is my mum. And I thought, what? And I could see my mother praying for me. It really shook me. Yeah. Because I knew my mum was a Christian, and she tried to tell us how to, to live a Christian life. And I'd kind of failed pretty miserably. And I didn't believe in God anyhow. So I lay there, and she said, Ian, call out to God. No matter how far from God you may be. Call out to him. He'll hear you. He'll forgive you. And I thought, Mum, I don't believe in God. I didn't realise back in New Zealand, my mother had just heard God speak to her. She'd shown her my face and said, your eldest son Ian is nearly dead. So my mum's freaking. She's a believer. She's on her knees praying for all she's worth back in New Zealand, and I'm in an ambulance nearly dead. So the power of a mother's prayer, it shook me. Yeah. And I said, well, I don't know who God is, and you're going to help me if you are out there. Next minute, the Lord's Prayer appears before me, saying, forgive us our sins. And I said, well, God, I've done heaps of sins. I don't know if you could forgive me. I've done so much wrong. But if you can, please forgive me. Yeah. Words disappear. Fresh words come up. Forgive those who've trespassed and sinned against you. And I thought, well, that's easy to do. I'm not a vindictive person by nature. I can forgive anyone. As I said that, the face of the Indian taxi driver appeared in front of me. The guy pushed me out of his cab. What the heck? Oh, I tell you what I said, but, it wasn't exactly, God bless you, my son, And the voice said, will you forgive this boy for pushing you out of the taxi? And I thought, mate, I'm going to rip his head off. Next minute, up come the Chinese hotel owner. I'd asked him to take me in his car, and the voice said, will you forgive him? Forgive this Chinese man. I said, mate, forgiveness wasn't the top of the list. I was going to rearrange your face, actually. And then I had this bizarre realization that this voice I'm talking to, that's been talking to me all night, is actually attached to what my mother calls the Lord's Prayer. And my mum had always said that God could speak. Yeah. But I'd never heard him. Yeah. And I'm just lying there dying, and I'm thinking, unbelievable. Yeah. God actually could be real. He could actually be talking to me. I said, well, God, I'll forgive them if you can forgive me. If you can somehow forgive me of all the degenerate stuff I've done, I forgive them. The moment I forgave them, their faces disappeared. Wow. Now, it's easy to say the words, but to mean in your heart, it's different.
We're going to be back in a couple of minutes' time with the jellyfish man, Ian McCormack. Died, as he said, experienced Jesus and what heaven was, and then came back to life. An incredible, incredible story. More of Ian's story on the way next on Towards Understanding.
Share your brand, your event, your message across 90 Christian radio stations and major cities in Australia and New Zealand by sponsoring Towards Understanding, hosted by Clayton Bielen. More than 210,000 people tune into Towards Understanding each week, and with just one sponsorship, you'll reach this immense engaged audience. Find out more about this exciting and unique opportunity now on the sponsorship page at positivemedia.com.au.
Here you are, you know, the worst point in your whole life, but it's the point that you actually realised, hey, this God thing's for real. What happened next then, for you,
Well, they raced me into I remember distinctly in that ambulance, everything went into slow motion. Years ago, my mate had lost the car in a corner and rolled it. I remember how everything slowed down in time, and in that ambulance, time seemed to slow down. And amazing thing happened in that prayer time. They raced me into the hospital, and the doctors saw that I was nearly gone. They had injections and the nurses and orderlies and drip feed. People were shoving needles into me. But I could hear them speaking, but I was going further and further away. I could feel myself almost coming out of my body. It's really, really scary. And they said, son, that's all we can do for you. Keep your eyes open. I just thought, well, I can't even do that. I couldn't speak. I was completely paralysed. And I thought, look, I've got to rest. I've got to sleep. So I shut my eyes. The moment I did, incredible relief. I felt the battle to stay alive had finished.
Yeah.
At the precise moment I'm feeling all this happening, the machine's monitoring my heart flatline, and the doctors come running over and pronounce me clinically dead, but I'm alive, really. So I'm instantly out of that hospital and in a place of complete darkness.
Right.
And as I'm standing, I thought, what's happened? Have the lights been turned off or something? And then I realised that I'm standing in a place of absolute raw evil. And I think, well, you can't even see your hand in front of your face. I bring my hand up to where my face should be, and my hand goes straight through my face.
Wow.
I thought, where's my chest? My hands go straight through it. As I stand there, I realise to my horror that I'm actually out of my body, and there's no physical form, and I'm in complete darkness with an intense evil presence.
Yeah.
Then I hear men screaming at me out of the darkness saying, shut up! And I'm going, I didn't say anything. You deserve to be here. And I thought, deserve to be where? Another man said, you're in hell. Now you shut up. And I was going, hell, I don't believe in it. And the voices of these men just screaming at you to shut your face. And I didn't realise that my thought was like speech. They could actually hear it. And as I stood there in this terrifying place, you know what I mean, I thought, well, isn't hell supposed to be a party place, you know what I mean? And then I got, I realised, no, it's pretty hard to have a party when you put your hand straight through your head, you know what I mean? Pretty hard to grab a beer. And so I'm standing here, or a bong or something, so I'm standing here out of my physical form in complete, absolute darkness, alive with other men telling me I'm in hell. I thought, well, perhaps I deserve to go here, mate. I rolled the dice of life, look how I've lived my life. And next minute, this pure white light came through the darkness. Incredible white light. As this light touched me, my whole person seemed to literally get translated off the ground and caught up into this pure white radiance. I think it'd be a bit like looking at sunlight as it comes through a window. You know how you see dust often go up in that beam of light?
Yep.
I felt like a speck of dust being drawn up in this incredible radiance. As I come up, I see that the light's drawing me out of the darkness into like a tunnel, a circular kind of shape. As I enter this tunnel of light, I realise I'm not walking, but I'm just moving at the speed of light, incredible speed. Yet I don't feel wind on my face, I just feel like I'm moving at amazing pace. I then watch as waves of light come up. Then the first wave of light brings comfort, and the next wave of light, incredible peace into me. I thought, this light, it looks like laser light, but it's giving off a living emotion. I can actually feel comfort and incredible peace in my heart. I thought, well, in the darkness, when I try to see my hand, it went through my face. I wonder if in this pure light I can see my human form. So I turned my head to the right and saw my fingers and my hands, and they were completely transparent, full of white light. That's amazing. Like you're out of your body, but you can actually see your spiritual form. It has the same form as your human body, but no flesh and blood. I thought, what is this? I moved further down, another wave of light came up, and an amazing joy went into me. At this point, I came out of the end of this incredible tunnel of light and radiance. The best way to describe it would be like coming to the center of the universe. The most brilliant light. Then I thought star systems, galaxies, constellations, everything in the universe must find its energy from this radiant light that's in front of me.
Yeah.
As I stood there in the midst of the light, I heard this voice of this man speak.
Mm.
And I realised it was the same voice that had been talking to me the entire evening.
Mm.
Same person who led me through the Lord's Prayer. And he called me by name. He said, Ian, do you wish to return? I said, return? Where on earth am I? I look behind me, and here is this tunnel going back into darkness.
Mm.
I thought, am I actually standing here? Or is this happening in my head? Am I alive or am I dead? I had no idea the doctors had pronounced me dead, moved my body into the morgue, and I was on a slab. My body was on a slab.
Wow.
And I'm standing here out of my body, and I said, look, I don't know where I am. If I'm out of my body, I want to go back. He said, Ian, if you return, you must see in a new light. I thought, light? Are you the true light? As I asked him, he spoke to me, and he said, Ian, God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. 1 John 1:5. As he spoke these words, I could see them like words of light in front of me. I could actually read them, like I read the Lord's Prayer in the ambulance.
Wow.
God is light. I thought, look at this amazing light. Is that God in the midst of it? And in him, there's no darkness. I thought, well, then I've just come from a hellish place of complete darkness, and I see no shadow, no darkness, no evil coming off this person. And all I felt is real comfort and joy and peace. I thought, if that's God, what am I doing here? I done a heap of things wrong. I felt really exposed. I began moving back, and waves of radiant light came off him. And the first wave of light that touched me, pure love.
My guest, Ian McCormack, here on Towards Understanding.